Welcome to the Explainer. So today, I actually want you to imagine plants and animals not just as, static living things, but as massive, bustling construction sites. Now think about a real construction site for a second. You definitely wouldn't use a bulldozer to paint a wall, right? It makes no sense. Every single tool on that site has a very specific job. Well, living things are exactly the same, and their tools are these highly specialized cells working around the clock. Okay, let's dive into this. And to start, I want you to just think about this question for a second. If you were made of literally trillions of tiny microscopic cells, why don't you just look like a giant formless blob? I mean, it's a kind of funny mental image, but it highlights a really profound biological truth. The whole reason you have eyes to see, muscles to move, and a brain to think is that your cells aren't just a bunch of identical squishy water balloons. They're incredibly varied. They operate exactly like a highly specific toolkit. To really understand this toolkit, we need to lock down two absolutely crucial words: function and specialized. A cell's function is simply its job, the specific role it plays in keeping the organism alive. And when we say a cell is specialized, it just means it has a physical structure uniquely adapted to do that one function incredibly well. I mean, just like you wouldn't use a hammer to turn a screw, your body relies on cells shaped perfectly for their specific jobs. In biology, form always follows function. So, let's crack open the animal kingdom's toolbox. We're going to play a quick game of mystery object using structures straight from your own body. I want you to look closely at their unique shapes and see if you can guess what they do before I actually reveal the answer. Ready? Here is our first mystery object. Take a look at this completely smooth disc-like shape. It kind of looks like a tiny squished donut where the hole wasn't quite punched all the way through, right? Now, if you had trillions of these floating through the liquid inside you, what do you think their delivery job might be? If you guessed transporting oxygen, you are spot on. This is a red blood cell. Now, what's really interesting about this is just how extreme its adaptations are. First off, it's actually smaller than most other cells in your body, just so it can physically squeeze through tiny blood capillaries. But here's the truly wild part. It has no nucleus. None. It completely ditches its own command center just to leave more empty space inside. Why? So it can pack in a red pigment called hemoglobin. That hemoglobin is what actually grabs onto the oxygen. The cell literally sacrifices its own internal structure just to be a better delivery truck. How crazy is that? All right, let's look at mystery object number 2. Look at this bizarre spidery shape. It has a main body right in the center, but then it has these crazy branching arms reaching out and one extremely long tail. Why on earth would a cell ever need to be stretched out like a long wire? This is a neuron, or a nerve cell. Its whole function is to carry electrical signals from one part of your body to another. That extraordinarily long strand of cytoplasm you see stretching out, that's called an axon, and it acts exactly like a communication cable, allowing electrical signals to travel incredibly fast across massive microscopic distances. And those short, spiky strands are on the main body? Those are dendrites. They act like tiny little antennas to collect electrical signals from nearby nerve cells. Because of this beautifully adapted shape, your brain can instantly send a signal down the wire to tell your muscles to move. Moving right along to mystery object 3. Look very closely at the top edge of this cell. Notice how it looks like it has a fringe of tiny hairs or maybe a microscopic brush attached right to the top of it. If this cell lines the tubes leading down into your lungs, what sweeping job do you think it performs? So this is a ciliated cell, and its primary job is absolutely crucial. It keeps dirt and bacteria out of your lungs. Those tiny moving threads at the top are called cilia. So the crucial point here is how this specific structure acts as your body's built-in air filter. The other cells in the lining of your breathing tubes secrete a sticky mucus that traps the dust and bacteria you breathe in. Then the cilia on these specialized cells constantly wave back and forth, sweeping that dirty mucus up and out of the lungs to the back of your mouth so you can swallow it. I mean, it is a built-in automatic microscopic broom. Let's move on and see how this builds, because we're going to shift our focus from humans to these specialized tools operating inside plants. You might think plants are simple since they mostly just kind of sit there in the sun all day, but I promise you, their internal microscopic toolboxes are just as brilliantly adapted. Here is mystery object 4. Take a look at this structure. It has the main rectangular body of a typical plant cell, sure, but it has this bizarre stretched out appendage poking out to the side. Why would a plant cell living deep in the dirt need an arm that looks like an underground straw? Well, this is a root hair cell. It's found right on the outside layer of plant roots.
Its main function is to absorb or soak up water from the soil. And that long, thin extension is the absolute perfect adaptation for the job. It acts like a giant sponge, dramatically increasing the surface area of the cell so water can move easily from the soil straight into the plant. Its highly stretched structure perfectly matches its function of reaching out into the dirt and grabbing moisture. And here is our final mystery object Object 5. This cell is found up in the leaves. And notice how it is absolutely packed with these little green discs. What ultimate power source do you think this leaf cell is trying to capture?
You guessed it, sunlight. This is a palisade cell, and its job is to make food for the plant through a process called photosynthesis. To do this perfectly, it is literally jam-packed with chloroplasts, which are filled with a green pigment called chlorophyll. That chlorophyll absorbs energy from the sunlight to help the plant manufacture its own food. Being packed full of these green discs makes this specific cell the ultimate biological solar panel. And this brilliantly illustrates the entire concept we've been talking about today. Just compare these two plant cells side by side. The palisade cell is packed with chloroplasts to catch sunlight because its job requires it and it lives high up in the leaf. But the root hair cell? It has 0 chloroplasts. Actually, none. Why? Well, because it lives completely underground in the dark, where sunlight never ever reaches. Producing chloroplasts down there would just be a massive waste of energy. The environment and the job entirely dictate a cell's physical structure.
Let's bring everything we've covered together and quickly map out the animal toolbox. Notice how beautifully the structure matches the function across the board here. The red blood cell's function is to transport oxygen, right? So its specialized structure is packing hemoglobin into its cytoplasm and entirely ditching its nucleus to fit it all. The neuron's function is carrying electrical signals, so it has that extremely long wire-like axon. And the ciliated cell's job is sweeping away mucus, so it's perfectly equipped with those tiny hair-like cilia. Every single form perfectly serves its specific function.
It is truly incredible to think about. You have literally trillions of these microscopic tools, blood cells squeezing through tiny capillaries, neurons firing down electrical cables, ciliated cells sweeping away dust, all working perfectly together right this very second, keeping you alive. And every plant you see outside is doing the exact same thing. So, what other unseen marvels are operating inside you today? I hope this explainer has sparked your curiosity and maybe changed the way you think about the living world. Because there is an entire, perfectly adapted microscopic universe inside you, just waiting to be explored. Keep questioning and keep learning.